All right, good afternoon. Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to this end of July edition of PCA Live with the Government. Scott Pierce, the Executive Director of the Premium Cigar Association, joined with our guest today, our brand new President of the Premium Cigar Association, Mr. Greg Zimmerman, coming to us live from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Is it Harrisburg specific proper? Am I getting that right? Or is it
Yep.
Lemoyne where? Harrisburg, all right.
Yeah, in Harrisburg, yep.
Fantastic. And then, as always, Head of Government Affairs, Joshua Habersky, coming from an undisclosed location in the desert, and Mr. Glenn Luke, Head of our state government advocacy program here at the Premium Cigar Association, representing the Washington Nationals as we solemnly bid them a solid good evening, as they have now just traded away Max Scherzer and Trey Turner and any chance of winning for the next couple of years for the Dodgers farm system, it seems. So on that note, welcome everybody. Greg, this is your first Facebook Live as the president of PCA. So I am going to proudly turn the time over to you to welcome everybody to your first PCA Live as the president of this association.
No, thank you, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here on a Friday afternoon, beautiful Friday afternoon. Hopefully everybody's got a nice cigar lit up and we can have good conversation. And I apologize for if some of you have heard some of this before. If you attended the PCA show, we talked about some of the direction that the PCA is going to be going in the next few years. So I think as president, I think one of the top priorities that I'm looking at is obviously to stabilize the economy of this association. And I think we're off to a good start with the successful execution of the PCA trade show. It was, I think, a fantastic show. It was remarkable that we were able to pull that off in the short amount of time that we had. I think another focus would be to help create or help to solidify some of these states in the creation of state associations. A lot of times people will ask me, why do you advocate, and why, how do you quantify advocacy? And a lot of times that is difficult to quantify, but I think I can demonstrate why we need something like this in a pretty relevant scenario or an example. If you look back at the reason why we are where we are today, if you look back at 2008, 2009, this was primarily just a trade show, this association. And because of SCHIP, we had to coalesce, mobilize, and none of us knew how to advocate or how to lobby, how to go to a Capitol or, into DC and lobby, legislators. So we kind of were doing that in the dark. And now we see why we need to do that, because of the Tobacco Control Act that was passed in what year was that? 2009, I think it was. Yeah. And now we have to go back and retroactively try to fix what was wrong with the Tobacco Control Act. And you can see the difficulty that it is to be able to go back and change those things. Once a piece of legislation, this massive piece of legislation that's put in place, really your only choice at that point is through the courts to be able to change that. But had we been mobilized at the time, we may have been able to affect some of that language that was in the Tobacco Control Act. So that is why we need to do these things proactively and ahead of time in the states. So forming a state association, we've tried to come up with a guidebook or a playbook, so to speak, to help state associations formulate. We have sample drafts of articles of incorporation, bylaws, how to hire a lobbyist, how to conduct fundraising, how to talk to your state legislature, your congressman, or your senators. So a lot of that stuff we have kind of in a toolbox, and you can find a lot of that at cigaraction.org, which is where we're going to keep a lot of that. But I think also that under helping to inform a lot of the retailers in the states. I think a lot of them unless something actually is in front of you, they're not mobile. So I think being proactive in trying to maybe head off some of this stuff, because if you look at the states, a lot of this stuff percolates at the local level, at the state level, and then you'll eventually see it. Like the flavor bill that was proposed in California, I think it was SB 38, had some very, very dangerous language in it that could have included premium cigars across the board. And we see that now that there is talk on a federal level, I think Biden has proposed, maybe that there should be a ban on some of this flavor stuff. So being able to hit this stuff in the beginning at the local and state level, I think is paramount. And I think that we need to help states understand the complexity of lobbying and advocating. And I think we have a good team to do that. We're here to help states that have been very active and been successful. I think in my case, I'll talk about Pennsylvania. We've been, very quietly been active, and we've been able to, again, going back to quantifying what advocacy looks like. A lot of times it's what didn't happen, and you'll never know that. But we quietly, behind the scenes, have fought off a tax increase for a number of years here in Pennsylvania. It's really never gotten to a vote, so we kind of do that, proactively. Then there's some measure of success there. So that would be the two main priorities I think that we need, that I'm going to focus on. And we have Glenn Loop and Josh Herbersky here to help you guys all in the state to be able to put these plans in action and to be successful.
Yeah, well, thanks, Greg. We look forward to working with you. And I know that, as I mentioned on the Fuente show over the weekend, that we're really excited. And I think that there's a ton of enthusiasm, not only within the team and the association, but with the members that we've spoken to over the past few days, and kind of the deep dive and post-trade show. We're about to enter the August recess period, which I think for this year is going to be anything but a recess. There is still a ton of activity going on at the federal level as well as the state level. The budget resolution as well as the infrastructure bill are still being debated. That's something that, could go into and really August recess might not happen, or to the extent of a 4-week district work period, that might not happen. Irrespective of that, we are going to be sending out some resources on how to communicate with elected officials. During a traditional August recess, there will be about 4 or 5 weeks where members of Congress, federal members of Congress, will be back in their districts. This is a perfect time to have them visit your store, your lounge, meet with your employees, go to the district office and communicate with them firsthand and show them the sensory experience of premium cigars in the business aspect of it. So we will be releasing that. As Greg mentioned earlier, we've updated our state association guidebook. That will be relaunched in August as a new resource. So, we're building a lot of different products, so to speak, for the advocacy department, and making sure that those are ready to go this August recess. At the trade show, we released kind of our overall strategy and guide. We're parsing that out and providing informational nuggets to our membership at large, and specific segments that have, the focus, in certain states like Massachusetts, there's ongoing battles that Glenn's going to talk about. So we're honing in on those things, but we're providing a general informational outreach to all of our members on what's going on in the advocacy world. A couple of weeks ago, you may have seen the court decision. We are, we don't talk a lot about publicly what goes on in the courts because we are an active party. The one thing that I will say in this regard is that decision applied to all cigars. There is another active case that is going on right now that is limited to premium cigars. And that's in a courtroom where we have won in the past several times. So that is something that we will be continuing to work on with our litigation team and with our partners at CRA and the other associations. Patrick Anderson and I are going to be meeting a lot this month at the staff level. There are, as we talked about in previous segments, about 3 active bills in Congress that would increase taxes on premium cigars and pipe tobacco astronomically. So we will be doing, it's a lot easier during this recess period to meet with staff, so chief of staffs, legislative directors, and we're going to be meeting with offices that we don't traditionally interface with and providing some of that educational outreach of, hey, this is what a premium cigar consists of. This is what a premium cigar is not. So, we will be working on that. Expect a few different communications from the association. I mentioned those new guides, but also we are pushing forward and trying to raise some additional funds for industry defense fund. And also, there is something, and this is a perfect segue into the state and local piece that Glenn will talk about. We are noticing, due to the Delta variant and some spikes in coronavirus cases, that some of the localities and states are reverting back to the draconian mask policies that has the potential to shut down cigar lounges and cigar shops for indoor smoking. We've noticed that in the typical areas where we've seen past issues in DC, we're monitoring that very closely at the present time and working with relevant stakeholders to address that and provide any information to counter claims about that. So, definitely a very busy and active August. For those of you that are going to be traveling to the Rocky Mountain Cigar Festival, I know that some of our staff will be out there, and we hope to meet and interface with you, just like we did with the trade show. We also had some content that we recorded at the PCA trade show that we will be releasing as video and written content over the next few weeks. So, Glenn, I will kick it over to you. I know that there's still a lot of stuff, despite some of the states adjourning, some have not, and there's a ton of activity going on in our states.
Well, thanks, Josh. And it's a lingering collection of states that still have issues pending. I wish the Massachusetts legislature would just go home, visit their families, see their children, get out of Boston. But there's that lingering tax increase measure that would virtually double the OTP in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that still lingers nationally. We've had a great deal of discussions with the legislative delegation from the state of Connecticut. New York still has its active bills for a tax cap and cigar bar legislation alive in the state of New York. And with that, there is a great deal of resolve if those bills keep their current status, to carry them over into the 2022 legislative session. Over the coming weeks, we're going to put a great deal of emphasis on new association formation in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Louisiana, and Indiana. And that stems from conversations that took place at the convention and trade show in Las Vegas. Before I get to 2 exciting pieces, I want to provide an update, just because these things have a way of transcending boundaries. This morning, and so that makes this CNN breaking news. God knows how I like visual aids. This is breaking news. We heard that the mayor of Washington, D.C. signed the flavor ban. Well, there's a little known codicil, apparently. And our sources on city council have been very good at keeping us apprised of these developments. But there is a codicil that the bill has to be paid for. And all too often, legislators don't pay attention to these fiscal impact statements, that these legislation when legislation, let me back up, when legislation is generated, if there's a fiscal impact, more times than not, legislatures, whether it's a city council or a state, require a fiscal impact statement. Well, these flavor bans, which we work with our brethren at the CAA on, and we have a position policy statement on it, and we don't want any cigar shop to be economically harmed by such measures. So Washington, D.C. generated a fiscal impact statement on this flavor ban. It ended up their Department of Finance says that in the first year this would cost the city $3 million, $8.6 million over the course of the next 3 years after the first year of implementation. Well, apparently it's got to be paid for before it can be implemented. That means they got to find a lot of money, and you might think it's Washington, D.C. Well, dollars are scarce at the city council level in Washington, D.C. because they have to go to Congress for their money. I'm not going to get into all of that. But the point is, it has to be paid for. So right now, today, according to our sources with city council, the bill, even with the mayor's signature, can't be implemented because it has to be paid for. And that this could be dragged into 2022 and 2023 per the information that I've received this morning. So with that, I find that just interesting, and it's interesting in terms of how this thing plays out. These types of flavor ban bills play out nationally. What I want to end my part of this this update about is what I consider incredibly exciting for one reason: the fact that these bills were introduced. I'm pleased to say that Augusta, Georgia, through Commissioner Jordan Johnson, introduced a cigar bar exemption bill to their city smoking ban. Well, this dovetails perfectly with what we spoke about on the panel at the convention and trade show in Vegas, with the city of Louisville also introducing a cigar bar exemption to the city smoking ban in Louisville, Kentucky. Let's think about this: two parallel cities, different states, Augusta, Georgia, Louisville, Kentucky, both asking for the same thing. Why? They recognize that we're different. They recognize we're unique. They recognize we cater to a specific adult clientele. They've made the public health argument. They're making the small business argument. They're making the travel and tourism argument. It's a wonderful package. And so I called Commissioner Johnson's office in Augusta, Georgia this week and voiced our support for his efforts there. We've provided updated information on other jurisdictions throughout the country that have cigar bar exemptions to help reinforce the measure in Louisville, Kentucky. Both of these are being advanced to their full city councils on split decisions in committee. But again, right now, I'm excited just the fact that they were introduced, just like similar bills were introduced in North Dakota and Montana during this last legislative season. We got to look at the long game. It's not that these bills passed or could pass. It's the fact that they even exist. And Greg Zimmerman, we've been around this stuff long enough to remember a day when we couldn't even dream of such bills being introduced because we were lumped in with other tobacco products. And now this new day, I think, is coming to be where we're truly being recognized as being different, being unique. And I think that's exciting for the industry. And we're excited to reinforce the messaging in Augusta, Georgia, and Louisville, Kentucky, and these states that are confronting similar issues and battles to help not only protect this industry, but make them a part of the cultural fabric of the community. We've seen now what burn means in Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Oklahoma City, Indianapolis, much less the home base for Rocky and Naples, what blend has meant in Nashville and Indianapolis, what Casa de Monte Cristo lounges have meant in different parts of the country. It's becoming a part of the social small business fabric of the community. And a lot of small business entrepreneurs like Safari in Omaha, Nebraska, I could go around the entire country, much less the entire state of Florida, and name some of the greatest cigar bars that exist in the country. And they're institutions like Nikki Blaine's in Indianapolis, local small business ownership that was exempt in the early days of the Indiana smoking ban because of what they are to the community. So I throw all that out because I just think it's a unique moment in time for this industry. And we're excited to have that a part of our local and local and state political action. Thank you,
Glenn. I think it's an important point that you bring up. I mean, this activity is important for us to advance the message, and not only do that, but also counteract some of the claims about youth access. If you have an age verified location where people can enjoy an adult beverage as well as a premium cigar of age, have the appropriate checks. That's advancing this narrative that we are not part of the problem when it relates to youth access. I think it's very interesting in Louisville and Augusta, two marquee sporting events at both of them, and the connection with the sports and cigar culture. So, hopefully we can see that proliferate in other cities where people can enjoy a place. It's tough when you see some of the trends in the other localities where there's less and less places where you can enjoy a cigar. I mean, even in Las Vegas, where I've spent quite some time this month, including the trade show, there are fewer and fewer locations where you can enjoy a premium cigar. The casinos, we've been fighting that in several states that are considering prohibiting and amending and adding to the Clean Air Act casinos to be prohibited from allowing smoking.
Well, I think that's what makes the uniqueness of our industry such a blessing to the cigar community. You mentioned Las Vegas. The very fact that there are a few places to go makes Casa de Monte Cristo and Casa Fuente and the Davidoff Bar in Vegas truly unique attributes of the community. It's what makes Ashton Cigar Bar a unique part of the community in Philadelphia. We can, again, go around the country and name these spots. And the fact that there are so few of them proves that the cigar industry is not going to become the Starbucks of tobacco. And I think that's an important point to bring up. We're not going to become the Starbucks of tobacco. And that's what our opposition loves to say. Oh, they're going to be proliferation of cigar bars all over the community. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen anywhere in the country. But if there's just one, it's like when the New York City smoking ban came into place and the Carnegie Club was exempt and Soho Cigar Lounge was exempt. Think about it. 8 million people in the metropolitan area, and I could name the cigar bars in New York City on one hand. And that's true throughout the country. And some of the best in the Silverleaf in Fort Worth, Texas, the only show in town. I mean, again, I could go around the country to just bring up these truly unique community assets within these cities and states around the country. And I just think we're onto something as far as in fact, that Augusta and Louisville didn't come through the cigar sector. They came from private sector initiatives that had nothing to do with us. And I think that also speaks to how we're being viewed by some elected officials at the local level.
And they recognize the revenue and jobs that are at stake, plain and simple. It wasn't an industry, obviously we support the local ordinances and legislation, but it wasn't something that we were, pushing forward and initiating.
I tell you what, I think we've got great ammunition as an industry now to support these types of efforts. We've got the public health data. We've got the youth access data. It's all the research breaks our way. All the data, the demographic analysis breaks our way. And being able to provide that information to these localities has just been a blessing and a testament to the investment that the Premium Cigar Association and CRA invested in those types of research entities over the course of the last 5 to 7 years. We're going to be reaping financial benefits and industry benefits for that investment for years and years to come.
Yeah, and I'll just say, one of the things, echoing what I talked about at the annual convention here is, we are getting better and better, right? Our skills are getting honed at this. We are now veterans, as Greg talked about. We have a decade under our belts, and we've gotten up to speed quickly. We've continued to punch above our weight class, and we know it's working. And why do we know it's working? So, Glenn, you've touched upon it. Josh, you've touched upon it about the progress we're making. But the biggest key here that everybody needs to understand is our opposition is now changing tactics because we have been gaining ground. We have been winning. Our message is strong. It is on point. We have data. We have facts. We have truth on our side. and truth and justice right now. I feel like I'm kind of spouting out of comic books here, but that's the ultimate reality. Is that's why we're winning. We have good, sound, solid, logical arguments, so that even when they ideologically don't necessarily agree with a lifestyle of smoking, there really is no ideological argument against what we are proposing because of the data, the economic analysis of that tax caps and what we get off of that. And also the data in terms of the cigar smoker and all of the aspects of the demographics and age. So we know that it's working. We're going to continue that. And we're going to get stronger as we go through this next year because we've learned a lot of great lessons. And as Greg talked about, our strategy for state associations, the PCA will be local everywhere in some capacity before too long, which makes us a very, very mighty force. And that's why we need, I started calling this state association groups. We need militia out there to activate when we are doing this. We're going to oversee, we're going to continue to pound the way that we do, review all of the data, review all of the potential bills coming through. But when we've got an engaged militia of state associations and consumers that are ready to activate when we see something that's percolating, we're going to be very difficult to beat. And we've already proven that, but that's how much better we're going to get at this. So anyway, so Greg, good first Facebook Live for you as president. I'll give you the opportunity to sign us off here and bid everybody a good Friday afternoon and a good weekend.
No, I just wanted to echo what you guys said. I think, Glenn, when I started off, I talked about how you quantify advocacy. And I think that this is a prime example of 13 years of formulating and educating legislators. It may not be right in front of you. That win might not be right there, but you can see the fruits of our labor after all these years of educating people. But I want to thank you for the good work you guys do for us, and we look for many, many more successes coming in the future. So one little funny thing I wanted to point out, I thought this was ironic. I know this isn't really germane to what we're talking about now, but I heard Nancy Pelosi this morning ask if she was going to support the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And she said, well, I haven't read it yet. We haven't read it. We need to read it before. I thought, well, aren't you the lady that said about the health care?
You got to pass it.
Pass it first before we learn what's in it. Now, which one is it?
Little known fact, but when you get elected into office, you get the ability that the rest of us don't have of being able to have it both ways. So if you're elected to the Senate or the Congress, you can have your cake and eat it too. Whereas for the rest of us, we don't have that, mental ability to be able to do that anymore. So Greg, I think that for you and I, as your tenure as president, I'm going to go ahead and call us the Bald Brigade, because I think that, we got the good solar energy going on here for the brains.
What color this?
Yeah, well, I know, right? We got it. Exactly. Hopefully mine, I think probably in the next couple of years, mine might be as gray as yours, but all good. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As always, you know how to find myself, Josh, or Glenn. Should anything arise, any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. On that note, I hope everybody has a phenomenal weekend, and I hope everybody out there smokes lots of delicious cigars and buys a lot of them from their local retailers. So on that note, have a great afternoon, everybody, from all of us here at PCA. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Great weekend.
Thank you.